Sound. We have our farms in Simpson Bay, and this is our second year growing kelp. So excited to share with you all about what we've learned and our experiences so far.
Christina, will you introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Christina. I'm an education specialist here at the Simpson Sound Science Center, and I am here to let the public know what's happening.
Okay, so I wanted to start by just go around, say your name, and just like why you were interested in taking a workshop and like what you're thinking about, basically.
Corey Blake, just starting a kelp farm in Simpson Bay with Amber Morris. And so we didn't get permitted last year, so we didn't put any kelp in. But we should be able to go this fall. And I'm excited about all the things that you can do with kelp. I've already ate some, it's real good. So a couple times, and watch the process with Sky and Sean. So I'm excited about it. Something new to do.
Cool.
I'm Aviva. This is cool. I'm a farmer. I didn't know you could farm this. So.
What are you a farmer of?
Mushrooms.
Hi, my name's Chris, and the reason I'm here is, I just think mariculture and kelp, the industry here in eastern side of Prince William Sound is just very fascinating. It diversifies our, economic, our economy here in Cordova, and just a big fan of the whole process. So not a farmer, but just want to kind of tune in, see where the pulses are going with the industry, and hopefully be an advocate for it in this region, even if I'm, not directly involved.
Ashley?
Hi, I'm Ashley. I'm just excited to see where we can go with kelp. It sounds like a good solution to healthier, sustainable farming industry.
Cool.
Christine, hi. I have a big tender and I just want to put it to use.
Best answers so far.
I'm Sarah Phillips. I'm here because of basically the same reasons, echoing what everyone else has said. I think it's a kind of farming that I could actually be good at.
Steve Phillips, just kind of echo what Sarah said. I'd like to kind of start my own farm and get through the permitting process and the placement. And I've kind of volunteered myself with some of the other organizations in town to go check on things and get drone footage of them and all sorts of stuff. So I just kind of want to get the ball rolling this year so we can maybe plant next year.
Cool. So, all right, this is going to work. So we're going to start with, I don't know what time it is, but we're going to start with, so here's your schedule for the day. So we have like a lot of virtual people that are chiming in. Pretty much anybody that I'd asked, hey, do you want to provide a presentation on a Saturday when it's probably nice weather? And they're like, yeah, sure. So nobody told me no. So we have a good schedule for you that's going to cover all these topics. But we're going to start with a farm overview in case some of you aren't familiar at all with this entire process. And that's just to lubricate your brain. Feel free to chime in and ask questions. And then same with my co-hosts, if I'm missing something that you want to address and not miss out on, just chime in. So there's a lot of steps to this process. And they're all fun and just go perfectly well, right, Sky?
No.
So we're going to go through, it kind of starts with, I think it starts with choosing the farm site. I mean, you're just mostly sitting at your computer looking out, at what you can have access to, and then it rolls from there. Like, then you have to get permitted, which can sometimes take up to a year or two. You guys are having some trouble. Sky, how long did it take you to get permitted?
About a year.
About a year. And then you need to make sure you have your, business license ducks in a row. And then there are some loan programs in case you have absolutely no money to start this. You can get a loan that are fairly low interest. and then buying gear, getting it in the water, and then there's a whole process with just getting young kelp that you're gonna ultimately outplant. Oh, Taylor, we didn't introduce you. That's Taylor.
Taylor.
What's your interest?
Oh, I'm actually involved with the kelp farm in Windy Bay. I've been involved with the installation of the grow lines and also the harvest of the kelp. So I don't have a lot of experience in a lot of the administrative side, but I've been really fortunate to get my hands on the actual gear and doing some of the gear work and getting everything set up and ready to go. So I'm just always willing to learn more about the other side of the process so I can be a better asset to that organization.
Cool. Great.
Yeah.
And then once you receive your young kelp, you have to outplant it. There's growing stage, harvest, which is the fun part.
Harvesting is the fun part, yeah.
And then processing, which is kind of a source of stress, and then marketing your kelp. And so we're going to give you an idea of what the state of the industry is, especially when it comes to marketing and processing, because those are problem areas right now. So this is the general timeline of a season for a kelp farmer. So it generally starts in July or August, where you're going to be looking for your adult wild kelp that you're going to get seed tissue from. And that seed tissue is what you send to a nursery, and then they'll send you back after they grow it out. It takes about 6 to 8 weeks to grow it out. And they'll send you that back. And then you have a few days to get it out on your farm. There's some ways to get around that few day time frame. And then there's a grow out stage where you should check on it a little bit, but it's supposed to be a fairly low maintenance thing if you pick the right spot. And then the harvest is usually around April. And the reasoning for the timing of like August, September, that time frame is you can find fertile tissue. There's mixed, opinions on whether or not when you can find adult fertile tissue. Some people say all the time, some people say specific windows. But if you go out in fall or late summer, you can find it. And then for April harvesting, you can leave it in longer, but you're risking it being there. One, for herring spawn here, some of these sites, herring will spawn potentially in that area. And the other is biofouling. So lots of creatures will grow on the blades, and it becomes harder to get food grade product out of that. And so you want a relatively pretty clean kelp if you're selling for food grade. If you're selling for fertilizer, you can let it get as gunky as you want. Here, have a seat, by Christina, or you can move this one too.
Are you?
And then, so then this is just your seasonal timeline. So, but when you're starting a kelp farm for the first time, you want to pick your site. And there's a lot of considerations that we're going to go into more detail later. But some of them are just being able to get there, weather windows, the presence of other farms, conflicts with fishermen and other users of that area, recreational use. And then there's just like the oceanographic conditions that you want to be thinking about. And then the availability of nearby wild stock for your seed. And you don't want to be near a seal haul out location. You actually can't put a farm near a known seal haul out location. So there's distances that you have to be aware of also. And there's tools for this already, which is pretty nice. There's an AUS mariculture map. So AUS is the Alaska Ocean Observing System. And they have this really slick map that will show you that has layers that'll show you, here's the current farm leases, here's the seal haul out locations. And then you can kind of hone in. And then if you make a login for that, you can actually generate your own maps that you give to ADF&G, and that's part of the permitting process. So you can use these online tools. You should also talk to your neighbors, your community. CDFU is a good one to talk to about avoiding potential conflicts with fishermen. Talking to MVE, they're providing a lot of advice about how to choose your sites and how to go about the permitting process. And then talk to existing farmers who are in this room. So here's just a snippet of what you'll see when you go into these maps. There's also a shore zone, which is an online tool that I think it was 2007 that they sampled here, but basically they flew every shore in Alaska, and there's video footage so you can look at it. Actually, you can see where you're interested in, and it gives you an idea of what's in the intertidal zone too. So there's kelp nearby, it's a rocky bottom, that kind of stuff. And then permitting, this is the schematic that they show at every conference we go to. And it's kind of terrifying. And I don't, Sky, do you want to attest to the permitting process? How complicated was it for you?
There's a lot of back and forth with different agency, it's multi-agency review process, so you're talking with federal level, you're talking with state level, Fish and Game, DNR. Your permit is ultimately through DNR and Fish and Game, but it also has to be approved by Army Corps. What else, Tamsin?
Coast Guard.
Coast Guard, yeah, so you have to kind of make friends with the agency people that are in charge of the permitting process for their agency, because you will be having phone calls with them back and forth as you go through the permitting. It's kind of a negotiation, or like, you'll think you're done and they'll say, go back and edit these 12 things. And then it's a lot of back and forth. And then when they say you're ready to submit it, then you're still waiting for months for it to be reviewed by multiple other agencies.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point to highlight the fact that if something was missing or not incorrect at different stages on your application, they're not just gonna throw it away.
Right.
They're gonna go to you, and it is a dialogue and negotiations. It's not just like, well, they didn't check this one box, it was dumpster, it goes.
Yeah.
And they're really good people, like, they've got a lot of experience now. We've seen a massive uptick in the number of applications since 2015, it was like 1 or 2 applicants a year, now we're up to 20, 30 applicants a year. The system's getting a lot better, a lot smoother. It used to be a 2+ year timeline, and now they've become a lean, mean machine. They've got a new portal system. Michelle Morris will be talking later, but it's a dialogue.
Yeah, and so today we're gonna have someone from Fish and Game and someone from APNR talk about this a bit. And they're gonna be, some of your points of contact, and they're actually fairly responsive, so it's, and like eager to help. It's very nice. And just keep in mind that the application period is between January 1st and April 30th. There's a window that you have to submit your paperwork. And I believe you can start beforehand, but then that's when you have to submit. Right.
Celebrating New Year's.
They'll help you. Yeah. Yeah, so this is just a look at what the permitting looks like for the joint application, and that you also need a stock and transport permit also, just to be in possession of wild kelp and moving it. And then this is the only thing that I didn't get additional people to talk about, but it's fairly boring topic unless you're ready at this stage. So there are small business loans for starting kelp farms, and the one that's relatively new is the Agricultural Revolving Loan Fund, or no, I guess it's not new, but there are farmers applying for this pot of money, and there are some, the timeframes around that, and you guys will get all these slides. There's a fee for it, and then they require collateral, though there's, looking into your background, so it's a typical loan application. And then there's a lot of other programs available, and you'll receive a document with links to all this. So if the day does come where you're thinking about, okay, maybe you need a loan, you'll have it in your email.
Oh, can I add one thing about the DNR loans? That's really nice. The DNR loans, their interest rate has nothing to do with the economy. They stipulate it themselves, so it's pretty low and it'll stay low.
And that's the Alaska Mariculture Revolving Loan Fund. Yeah, they've also just awarded last session, an additional, or it's in the budget this year, I guess I should say, to award more money to that revolving loan fund to make more accessible to farmers as well as hatchery operators if the amendment goes through. So the state's really behind it. It's a great resource. Pretty much every single kelp farmer I've worked with has utilized the Mariculture Revolving Loan Fund. That is specifically for mariculture, not just any other fisheries, but shellfish mariculture and then seaweed mariculture.
Okay, I think the DNR loan that I'm thinking of is just a blanket agriculture program that does also apply to agriculture.
Yeah.
That's good.
All right, so for those who just joined us, we're talking about loans. We're just doing an overview of the whole process. There we go. So then, okay, you got some money, you picked a site, you got maybe permitted, you got to start buying gear. And so some of the farmers here will talk more about this, but The farm is, or the kelp is grown on grow lines that are arranged in arrays that are positioned with anchors and buoys. And so you talk to some people in town that are not too keen on kelp farming, you'll hear like, oh, all those dang buoys. There are some buoys in it. So you need to design your array, and how you do that is going to affect how many anchors you have to either salvage or buy, or maybe you have a lot of anchors, so then you have the ability to go more anchors than buoys. But you can, think about, how many grow lines you're getting, the spacing of them, and then how many anchors and buoys and how much gear you're actually going to have to be in possession of. Anything you guys want to add?
I would say the scope, the size, the dimensions will all be site specific to every farm's going to be massively different. The equipment's going to be different for every single one. The major thing to think about with your design of your farm is that those grow lines need to be able to be connected and disconnected relatively easily for the seeding, and then also post-harvest. A lot of the permits require you to actually bring that gear out of the water. And you probably want to, because if you leave stuff in the water here, by the end of the summer, it's just covered in barnacles, covered in mussels, things that you don't want on there for next season for growing kelp.
Yeah, the grow lines, right, they go in kind of not too long before you're going to outplant, because you don't want other things to colonize that before you can colonize it. So this is what a typical farm looks like. And you can, so this is like a single line array, but if you add more grow lines to this, you can make a design like pictured above here. And then this is an example of a 5-line array that uses a spreader bar, just to give you another visual of other options for arrays. Caitlin's farm with the native village of Eyak, and also a farm with ocean rainforest, which is based in the Faroe Islands. And so they use, and this inspired Caitlin to use this concept, these vertical lines that are attached to the, it's not a grow line, but what do you call it? The main line. They have a main line and they have vertical grow lines. So then you get to see, their farm is a research farm. Caitlin will talk about that a bit later, but there is, different growth of the kelp at different depth. And so this is a good method to look at, which depth is best. And also over time too. So her farm's gonna leave this out for a lot longer than a typical commercial farm. And like I said, about a ton of buoys. This is a catenary array. So this was designed to optimize the acreage of your farm site. So the acreage does cost money. The more you're asking for in your permit, the more you're gonna have to pay. So there's currently people developing different kinds of arrays that optimize that space. And this is a fairly large setup that's like the size of a football field, basically. And there's a lot of lines in there. And so if you're wanting to tinker with like what kind of array you'd be interested in, Green Wave, who's going to speak after this part, I think, they have a lot of tools for continuing your training after this, learning new things. If you're stuck in a pinch, you can go to their hub and you'll find resources or communicate with people on how to get through problems. But they have this farm design tool, which you can, if you have some information about the farm you're interested in, you can say how much you want to produce, or it'll tell you how much you'll produce. So there's different inputs and outputs, and you can put how many lines you want to have, how much acreage you can afford, and then adjust the anchors and buoys and figure out what it looks like and what you'll actually need. All right, so you got your gear. Good. Now you need to go get some adult kelp. And so there are beds in a lot of locations here. And so this last fall, we went to Windy Bay and collected kelp. And you could do it by snorkeling, scuba diving. Those are the primary ones. Have you walked during low tide and collected your kelp?
Yeah. We did on North Island for the ribbon kelp. So, and Tamsin knows a lot about.
Yeah, it really depends on your tide, what species you're going for. Whole kelp's great because it's at the surface. You can just reach over and grab it. But the sugar kelp sometimes is a problematic child because it likes to live in kind of sandy areas that have a lot of flow, but not a lot of wave action. And it can be in the negative tide zone, so if you have a nice like -3 foot, you might be able to access it just by stomping around in your boots. But if you're weather dependent, you can't hit that nice low tide, snorkeling, not a wetsuit, maybe just you might just put your head underwater, maybe 4 feet down, but it's a lot easier than trying to go out with waders and grab things briefly with your fingertips.
Yeah, and then for those of you maybe don't know, the 3 species that are being farmed is sugar kelp, ribbon kelp, and bull kelp. Bull kelp, not so much around here yet. Has anybody harvested bull kelp here yet?
I think Native Conservancy grew some on their research farm. Or, yeah, their research sites, yeah.
Yeah, so bull kelp is kind of troublesome because they have these, nematocysts, but is there a different, they have these air bladders.
They float,
That-
ribbon kelp and sugar kelp do.
Yeah, so they float, and then you have all these buoys holding up your farm, and then you have your kelp floating too, so things just get a little weird, and then it's sitting at the surface, which can add exposure. And then if there's any ice coverage, Sky can attest that the ice will just take it out.
Ice is bad news.
This is bad. So those are the species that you'll be collecting, and then, so you want to know, what you're looking for, to know the anatomy of your kelp. And, I do have the laser pointer thing. So, what grips substrate, anything on the bottom, rocks, is the holdfast. So it's just like these finger-like projectiles that come out and grip the rock. And then that leads into a stipe, which will look different in different species, but it's always a stipe. Some species have the floater nematocysts, some species don't. And then blades, and am I missing anything important?
The midrib and.
Oh yeah, then there's other things like, hang on. There's a midrib, so you'll see this line come down, kind of like a leaf. But not all of them have that, so that's like an identifying feature of ribbon kelp. So this is your sugar kelp. They have a really tiny holdfast, it's kind of like skinny. And then they get like wavy edges, and they don't have a midrib. And then ribbon kelp have a midrib. And then these are the fertile tissue down here, so it's got this little skirt it's wearing. And these are called sporophylls, so that's the fertile tissue. And then here's bull kelp, and that's pretty recognizable by the floaters and just the size of the plates.
That's giant. No.
Oh, is it? Okay.
That's macrocystis, yeah.
That's macrocystis, never mind. Wrong way. There's bull kelp issues later. There is a 50-50 rule, so you have to collect 50 adult plants each year within 50 kilometers of your farm site. And it's as the otter swims, which was news to me as of yesterday. Not as the crow flies. So they're driving 50 kilometers. And this rule may very well change because they're doing genetics research right now. This whole rule is to try and prevent inbreeding or selective breeding of some kind of, kelp and then releasing that into the wild and et cetera. So these are fertile tissue spots. So this is bull kelp, a blade. And then you can see that there's really dark patches. Ribbon kelp, these are the fertile tissue. And then sugar kelp, basically just hold up to the sunlight and look for dark patches. And then you're going to cut out that fertile tissue and you're going to send it to a nursery. And Tamsin will talk more about that later, what you actually have to do for that process. And then once it's received at the nursery, the people that work there will clean it up, which means scraping all the biofouling off of it. Then they'll disinfect it, put it in the fridge overnight, and they're trying to stress it out before they re-expose it to seawater, put it in sunlight, and which will then cause it to hopefully release all its spores. And then those spores are put onto twine that is on PVC pipe. And then that's where they end up growing on this twine. And over the course of 6 to 8 weeks, they'll change the lighting and the nutrients, and then they add germanium dioxide, which prevents diatoms from growing in there and contaminating. So they're preventing contamination and just trying to grow the species that you gave them. And then hopefully when you get it back, it looks nice and fluffy. This is actually a really good picture. We don't often see it that way. And then once it's shipped to you, unless you're able to provide continuous flow through of seawater, you want to get it out within a couple of days, 3 days. So that can be problematic with timing, especially if you're getting it shipped to you from APMI and Seward. You get it here and then a storm rolls in and you're like, crap. But we're hoping to have a nursery here so that maybe we have a little local access, which would be nice. Keep it local. And then this is the outplanting stage, which I think this is a video. So you basically disconnect your grow line, put it through the PVC pipe, splice the twine into it, and then you're gonna move down the grow line, either from a Zodiac or from a vessel, and see if I can do that again. And then you kind of move along and the twine just unravels and it'll twist around the grow line. And then every once in a while you want to tie it off. And then at the end you resplice it and then you just cross your fingers and hope it all went well. If this, so sacrifice a goat to a during a full harvest moon is a good one. So Sarah, go ahead. Sorry, Phil. And then, yeah, check on your site periodically. Oh, the main thing is if you are outplanting when it is very cold, you want to try and keep your kelp protected for as long as possible. And I believe dumping it in the seawater is a good tactic to do that. Keeping it in the tote until the last second. Keeping it covered with paper towels, just protecting it because they will freeze. And then you'll see that as you're unwinding and it's like, oh no. And then it just grows, which is nice. You hope. So this is an aerial view of a farm in Kodiak. Again, a lot of buoys, and then you can see it under the water here. This is another farm in Kodiak. And then harvesting. So this is what hopefully you'll see when you go out to harvest. Having fish stokes to put it in is important. And then having a plan for what you're going to do with it, which is troublesome. Some people come up with some like unique ways to try and harvest their kelp. Hang on. My clicker. All right, rather than risk. That's a video I could send around. So some people come up with some automated ways to collect their kelp.
This is Alex Pryor's skit that he has here as a set net. This is one of the first years he did it, or one of his modifications. Every year it's been something different. But he built that frame on the back there. You can see kind of what he's resting his arm on is actually a block. And so they actually haul the line up and over between these two big poles. And then as the lines are lifted up, it makes it a lot easier to cut the kelp directly into either fish totes or broiler bags. Because it's heavy as shit once it gets that, between the kelp itself and how much water it brings on board. So being able to lift it up onto something to be able to harvest it is a big game changer. Yeah.
Need a clicker. Okay, so then once you have your kelp, there's several options for small scale processing, but ultimately, your goal is to scale this up. So you can blanch it and it turns this very lovely green. There's drying, which will give it a long shelf life. And then powderizing, which is not so much important for the food grade quality stuff, but there's a lot of pharmaceutical companies that are looking for kelp products in their products, and that's the form they want it in. And then as far as large scale capacity, at least when it comes to Prince William Sound and Cordova, there is some interest, but hesitation to get in on it early. And so this is an area that there's federal money for Build Back Better coming in that's hopefully going to provide some equipment in towns like Cordova and allow people to use those resources if they can identify spaces for them. So hopefully that is happening in the next year or two so that people aren't starting farms and then not having a option for what to do. Yeah. And then marketing. So there is not a large market for your kelp product. And you don't want to end up with bags of kelp sitting on the dock with nowhere for it to go, which is, happened to a lot of people. And before, there is a lot of effort going on, federal, state, private monies that are trying to develop products and test products and do economic feasibility assessments and identify ways to grow this market in fertilizer, in feeds for cattle, which feeding a cattle kelp can reduce the methane emissions. So it makes makes them have nicer farts, which is great. And then just the food, we live in a world that food security is a major issue. And this is a interesting and nice way to make a lot of food. But until those supply chains are better developed, some of the farmers that are working now, like Barnacle Foods is not farming, they collect wild kelp, but you can go into a store here and places throughout the United States and find their products. They mostly do like barbecue sauce and salsas and sauces. And a big part of their marketing is their story and the story of kelp. So talking a lot about, kelp as a superfood and something that's like sustainable, all the buzzwords, all the sexy words. And then Sky and Sean have with Noble Ocean Farm, they have a very pretty website and a huge social media presence, which is like very just when you go, you're like, oh, kelp farming just looks so nice. And they sell this good story of themselves. And so they're doing it on a smaller scale than even Barnacle Foods, but it's, kind of important if you have these skills to utilize them and put those into place during this early market stage, which some people just don't want to do. I wouldn't want to do it, so. All right, so I think we have some time before the next, so we can talk, just like kind of not so. Yeah, let's do that.
Better have one of those.
Absolutely fascinating. I'm sure. Yeah, I mean, that's.
If anybody online has anything to chime in, just add it to the chat. Oh, I see what you're saying.
I didn't go back into it. Once it's ready, give it to someone else. Well, part of it. Maps.